Hey guys, welcome back to another Q&A on January 18th, 2021. So, let's see what questions we have. Find my thread here somewhere. Okay. Maybe we'll find it. There it is. First one is massage therapy and or acupuncture and how it relates to recovery. Well, so if we're talking specifically recovery, I'm assuming in terms of like muscle recovery, I guess. Then, I mean, anything that increases circulation potentially would probably contribute to muscular recovery. Okay. Acupuncture is definitely debatable. The literature is not really. So certain parts of the community definitely aren't going to accept that as a therapy that is really effective. There's other people that use it and swear by it. So it's one of those things, well, take it for what you will. Whether it's placebo or whatever. But anywho, like I said, pretty much anything that is going to increase blood flow to the tissue is probably going to help with recovery. You're specifically asking about recovery, so I'm mentioning that. Now, as far as like other benefits towards, like injuries or anything like that, again, anything that increases blood flow to the tissues, probably going to help with those things as well, but to what extent, I don't know. Now, massage in and of itself, there's a lot of different types of massage, so you could definitely say that certain types for sure will have probably a beneficial impact on your nervous system, so especially your autonomic nervous system, putting you in more of a parasympathetic state. If it's more of like a relaxation type massage, right? So in that vein, sure, it would help, right? But again, I can't like say, it's more effective than this or this or this. So yes, if it's something that's easily available to you, it's probably going to be helpful. If not, then, I don't know if it's something that is going to be necessarily super beneficial toward recovery per se. Okay. Let's see. And I should, before I go to the next one, I should just really preface that and say massage is very vague because there's a lot of different types of things that fall under massage. Like recently having done the neurosomatic therapy with another friend of mine, that's a whole different ballgame. Like that's, that's effective on a whole different level than somebody just like rubbing a muscle that hurts, you know what I mean? So I guess you should definitely consider what you're actually getting. All right. See, this one says, might be more of a whiteboard topic, but would be interested to hear your take on how the brain neurochemistry changes when dieting. Most of us are well versed on hormonal changes of leptin and ghrelin, but how does our dopamine serotonin balance change? Anecdotally, we have all been in there with prep behavior. So dopaminergic, hyper routine driven and goal focused, and the stark contrast of this to an off season, potentially, depending on the person, I should say. It's not a stark contrast for some people, it just depends. But yeah, I think that probably is a really good topic for a whiteboard, honestly, so I could kind of maybe map it out a little bit better and give it its own little segment. But just in a nutshell, it's going to depend on a couple things. So from a nutritional standpoint, we have some impact directly. So serotonin, for example, is when you eat food or don't eat food, that could directly impact your serotonin levels. So less food could mean less serotonin production. So, I mean, that in and of itself is going to be huge because people eat less calories and some people way less calories, right? So, it could have some of those negative effects toward mood, mood balance, anxiety, depression, all that stuff. So, yeah, for sure, just directly from nutrition. And then also from a behavioral standpoint, like you're mentioning, the like hyper-focused, kind of neurotic, all that stuff, more driving that glopamine, driving that dopamine pathway really hard and creating further imbalance. Then obviously if we drive that too much, then we may end up in a point where we just end up bottomed out eventually. We're just like depleted, our body cannot keep up. Very much common when we end up in like this adrenal insufficient state, right? It also impacting a lot of our dopamine, or a lot of like our total neurochemical balance. We're down, we're bottom. So yeah, there's a couple things, behavioral and nutritional, that could definitely cause it. I mean, you add things like stimulants and stuff. So there's some definite variables going on there. I would definitely consider doing that for a whiteboard chat. I think that could be a good one and be a pretty interesting one. So it's a good question. Thank you. When to use Chasteberry other than PMS? Considerations. Okay. All right. So we got to look at really what would we be using Chasteberry for. I mean, the main thing is for progesterone. So essentially what we're doing with Chasteberry or Vitex is trying to increase luteinizing hormone and thereby increasing progesterone. Okay. So we're going to use it in any situation where that would be something that we would want to do. That's why it's commonly going to be used in things like estrogen dominance or cortisol, or progesterone steal, where high stress, or like post show, or like post diet period for females, or even like later in the actual diet period to retain a more normal estrogen to progesterone balance later in that deficit phase. So really anytime that we would potentially want to bring up progesterone levels, that's really the main thing that we're going to be doing with Chasteberry. So it does have some beneficial effects, by itself towards some of the side effects, PMS and what have you. But a lot of why we see those benefits is because it's actual hormonal action, right? So that's the main reason that we would use something like that. It works very well for those types of situations. And pretty much, that common like cortisol steal issue that we see with a lot of females, super common. It's probably one of the main go-tos for those types of situations. So, yep. All right. Let's see. A couple more here. Does increasing your BMR via small weekly calorie increases really allow one to diet on more calories? I've seen some conflicting arguments with this. Well, I mean, your BMR, or basal metabolic rate, is only going to go up to a certain point, and the only way that's really going to happen is if you were kind of down-regulated to begin with. You can't just eat more and your BMR go up indefinitely. You would just end up in a calorie surplus, right? I mean, that's what a calorie surplus, right? That's how you end up in a calorie surplus. You eat more than you're burning. Now, that's not just BMR, obviously. That's caloric expenditure. That's like a total calorie balance, right? But your BMR is not just going to continue to rise. But if you are in a down-regulated state, so like post-show, post-diet period, whatever, anything like that, yeah, your BMR probably going to go up some, for sure. Um, but there's a ceiling on that. It's only going to go up so high before you've kind of hit that ceiling, and it's not going to keep going up. And then when you drop calories, will it allow you to, if you've hit this ceiling, will it allow you to eat more? No, it's not really going to allow you to eat more. The only way that it would allow you to eat more on the way back down is if you, let's say like situation A, you started your deficit with a downregulated metabolism. Your BMR was not as good as it could have been. Okay, you had to eat this much less to create a deficit. Situation B, your BMR is fully peaked out as high as it can go, and you start, well, yeah, in this situation B, you might be able to eat a little bit more eventually, but you know, like that's kind of splitting hairs. I mean, you're probably just going to end up adapting and ended up right about in the same spot anyhow. So the simple answer is no, not really. It would not work that way. But of course, that's assuming that there isn't any like severe metabolic adaptation, because that would kind of change the equation. Okay. All right. So last one, I think. Okay. Training question. Pros and cons of, let's see, it's kind of cut off. Pros and cons of those two training paradigms. Rotate week to week exercises, 2 or 3 weeks, but do mini blocks, a la FT, I assume means 4 to 2 training, versus doing straight 4+ weeks blocks with the same exercises and then change them after deload or cruise phase. Okay. Well, I'm going to tell you that either of them will work if set up right, or set up right for that individual. And here's the thing is, we need a progression scheme, right? So what is our progression scheme? And I actually use both of those types of rotations with people. It could be a case where we'd have, I could give you a really easy one actually. And so you could even take a low volume approach like DC training. I kind of already do this within DC training. You have an A and a B workout, an A1 and a B1 and an A2 and a B2. You rotate within those. So you're actually, each A workout, you're actually not doing the same thing. You rotate back and forth between 2 different A workouts and 2 different B workouts, right? So you would just have to know, you know, if you're keeping track of your progression, what it's going to be weight, you know, load progression in that case, right? Then you'd be able to know, well, in A1, I did this exercise and this much weight, and blah, 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 and A2, you know, so, yeah, you can do it that way. You don't have to do it that way. It depends. You're going to see different opinions, and people will prefer different things too, because I don't mind it. I don't mind it that way to some extent, but if there's too much rotation exercise for me personally, I don't seem to progress as much, because I like to do a movement that I'm comfortable with. Now, part of that is also like your nervous system kind of acclimating to the movement. You're probably getting more efficient at it. You're moving better. So as long as you're like making sure your form's good and so on and so forth, your execution's correct, I don't see why you couldn't do the same exercise for multiple weeks. And you're saying like versus doing straight 4+ weeks. Well, I mean, doing an exercise for 4+ weeks in a row is not really a lot. Like I've seen way longer progression, 4+ months even. Now you're going to see different camps like in the strength world and stuff that are definitely going to vary. You can use like conjugate method. There's a constant rotation going on. But I think really it depends on where you see the most progression in yourself, what you can track realistically, and maybe how advanced you are. So I really think either can work if you have a progression model and you're able to hold yourself accountable and progress in the workouts. And I've done both with myself, and I don't really necessarily have a preference, to be honest, as long as I can make progress. Okay, so hope that helps. Talk to you guys next time.